Welcome to your new favorite show on the NGBN.TV network, Decades. My name is Chris Rubio. I'm going to have the honor of being your host of this fantastic panel where we're going to discuss things that you normally don't discuss. You guys are doing a great job of sharing and letting me know and letting a lot of the panel members know how much you enjoy the show silently. Now we want you to go out there and share it, share clips, more pictures, videos, anything you can with other people to let them know more about the show. All right. So who do we have first with us? Ed McAndrew, Sub 60 Ed. He's the guy that does literally everything behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. We couldn't do it without him. What up, Sub 60 Ed?
Yo, Rubio, what's going on, my friend?
How's it going, my man?
I'm doing well. Things good in Idaho?
Always good in Idaho. You ready for me to introduce the panel?
Let's bring them on out.
All right, let's start with the oldest person on the panel. Let's give it up for Jay Gaskill. He's also known as the judge. He's an Idaho native, recently retired district judge, which I guess is pretty high, so he says. He's an avid outdoorsman and wine connoisseur. Give it up for Judge.
Thanks, Rubo.
Our next one, we'll go to Bill Geiser. Bill resides in Tampa, Florida. He's a serial entrepreneur and innovator of wearable tech, one of the best swimmers out there, and he has two outstanding sons. What's up, Bill?
Hey, guys. Glad to be here, and I'm really glad that I'm not the oldest guy showing up tonight.
And now to our 50s, because we've got someone in their 60s. We actually have two in our 60s, one in the 50s, one in the 40s, one in the 30s, and one in the 20s. Here representing our 50s is Jim Gingrich. He's an Idaho native cybersecurity consultant, and he enjoys the outdoors and his guns. Welcome, James.
Good evening, gents.
Next up, representing our 40s, we've got Jim McElroy, Los Angeles, California, born and raised. He's a UCLA grad, a phenomenal wide receiver, and he's also an educator. What up, Jimmy Mack?
Howdy, folks. Missed y'all last week.
We missed you as well. Represent our 30, resides in Philadelphia, entrepreneurial spirit, works in real estate and small business, finance at a tech startup, and community involvement. Give it up for Big Joe Nolan.
What's up, jabronis? Glad to be back.
And last but certainly not least, Cruz Rubio. He's a college student athlete, likes arguing, tacos, hiking, and hanging at the beach with his chanclas on. Give it up for Cruz.
Howdy.
Okay, as you can see, we have quite the diverse panel from all over the country, to ethnicities, to heights, to weights, to everything. And someone emailed me recently to rubio@therubiomethod.com. You can always email rubio@therubiomethod.com, and I can funnel these questions to anyone. How do we all know each other? All right, so let's break it down for me. I know the judge because he lives next door to me. He's currently, right now as we're filming this, he's probably 43 yards away from me. Bill Geiser, I know because his youngest son?
Oldest
son went through long snapping training with me and then ended up snapping at Boston College.
Right.
James Gingrich is a longtime friend. I've known him for about 15 years. He's one that really took me under his belt when I moved here probably 15 years ago. Joe Nolan is a product of Ed. He's related to Ed, and so he's Ed's cousin. So that's how we know him. And then Cruz Rubio, we don't know. We just found him on the street. No, actually, he's obviously he's my 21-year-old son. All right, enough of the semantic. Let's get down to business here, guys. Oh, Jimmy Mack. My God, I didn't even see you. Jesus, my bad. And Jimmy Mack, my God. All right, and Jimmy Mack, I've known since 1993, which is about 5 years ago. He and I were on one of the most dominant UCLA football teams ever. When we stood next to each other, he was so skinny and I was so chubby, we looked like the number 10, but we still hung out and did a lot of great things together. So that's Jimmy Mack. My bad, Jimmy Mack. All right, before we get into the things here, I was recently, and I've spoken about this a lot lately, especially over the last 3 years, how the United States has somewhat become in a civil war. And I'm not talking with guns. Jim, just calm down. We'll get you in a second. I'm talking about more monetarily. So if you look at something, Ed, can you pull up my map for me real quick? The United States has always been kind of separated where we had the Pacific Northwest. They're kind of, you call them your granolas. You've got Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, North Dakota. No one really knows what's happening there, and they kind of just stick to themselves. You got California is kind of your West Coast, maybe hippiest a little bit. Arizona, New Mexico, it's kind of your artists. Texas is its own country. They all know that. The South is the South. It's its own little world. Then you have the Midwest, where it's just cheese, cold, and beer. And then you have the upper East Coast, where it's cold, and you've got more of a elite type of person. That's what you'd always kind of think about. So my take is this. Are we in a civil war right now monetarily, with not only just the way the way you're spending money on just things like vacations, homes, travel, and all that. Bill, I'm going to start with you because you always your tagline is "Welcome from the free state of Florida."
Well, first of all, I think most Americans believe in the laws of the nation. You know, rules, laws are institutions. So from that standpoint, I don't think we're anywhere near this violent fringe that's going to result in, guerrilla action and things like that. But I do think to a certain extent, there is an ideology war going on. And Ed, can you bring up that photo I sent you? This shows the domestic migration in the United States from April through July. And you see there are a number of states that are gaining people and a number of states that are losing people. And this is what's unique about the states versus federal. The federal government can implement all sorts of laws and we're all bound by those. But states can do their own things. And we, the people, as citizens of those states, have the freedom to vote with our feet. And a lot of people are. And I think the two reasons that are driving people largely out of those red states or from blue states to red states is number one, public safety, crime. And number two, the taxes. Just today, I don't know if you heard in the news, Nordstrom is leaving San Francisco. I mean, here is a classic retailer and known as a California founded retailer, flagship store, been there for decades. They finally pulled the plug and said, this is terrible. The crime, the safety for their employees. So I think from that standpoint, certain states, Illinois, California, New Jersey being kind of the three poster child, are doing things which are really stupid in the long run, and they're driving people away. So from that standpoint, I got to say something's going on that doesn't sit well.
Jimmy Mack, since he's talking about your home state, what's your thoughts on that? Where, I think California did have over 1 million people leave within the past 2 years.
Well, I think first of all, that's fighting words because Florida is a terrible state. I wouldn't even put my dog in.
You're always welcome here, Jimmy Mack. You're always welcome, buddy.
I mean, the main thing, I get with California. The main thing with California is it's too expensive to live. If you live in California, you can't live in the metropolitan areas without paying a pretty penny. I mean, my sister lives in Hemet, which is way out in the boondocks, and her house is bigger, cheaper on a bigger plot of land than what mine is, and I live in the city. So, a lot of people just rather just move out of state and go live somewhere cheaper than that, because that's one of the big driving forces. It's expensive to live in California. Me and my wife,
the highest effective tax rate in the nation.
Yeah, me and my wife make a pretty good amount of money, and we still live not that great, and we're told all the time, sell our house, we'll get over $1 million for it, and we can move to North Carolina, South Carolina, all these places, and make a killing, not even having to work no more, just doing real estate and things like that. So that's one of the main reasons. But when it comes to the Civil War, I'm not for sure if it's economic. I think it's more of an identity thing. I think that how people identify themselves is one of the biggest civil wars that we're having, and I know a lot of poor people who splurge, and this is what I mean by identity. They live rich lives, but they're poor, and they want to live those places, live that lifestyle in the big city where they can be seen, be noticed, and things like that. So you have more of an identity crisis or identity civil war with anything, and y'all see it all the time. It's on multiple battlefronts where the identity is. I don't think economics is that much of a problem anymore because people know where they can go to live cheap or where they can have a good cost of good life with a low cost of living. But it's where you want to be identified as. You want to be a city slicker, or you want to be a person that lives out in the natural areas, the rural areas, and be seen like that. I think we have a lot of an identity crisis. I don't think it will ever get to where we're going to be heated rivals and split gray and blue anymore. But we do have this identity issue that we need.
are we? Didn't you open up your statement with basically this blue and red? I mean, you came out on the gate hot, which you should have.
No,
when you said like, I'm not going to Florida. Florida's a
I
hellhole.
just don't like Florida. I've been there 3 times to Disney World. He had a stupid mouse.
Well, that's why, man. Okay, let me go to James Gingrich. James, because I believe you're the person that's moved the most recently. You moved from the state of Washington to the state of Idaho. So, what is your thoughts on all this?
I think Bill started out with it right. I mean, it's a war of ideology. One of the things that I picked up on is we're big on saying equality, but equality means equality of opportunity. Equality and liberty cannot live together. Some people are smarter. Some people are more athletic. Some people are more motivated. Some people want more out of life. And so we've warped this equality, which to me, and what for most of my 51 years meant everybody should have the same opportunity, females, males, minorities. And now we're saying we all want the same thing. And a good example of that is I literally thought I was hearing a fucking joke on the TV when Biden said that interest rates are going to go up for those with good credit that make more money. So those who make less money and have poor credit can pay less. And that goes back to the topic that Cruz backed me up on the judge said. I don't hear her talk about socialism. That's socialism. I did everything the way I'm supposed to do it. And now I'm going to get punished. So I think it is a war on ideology. I think we're a ways away, but also I know a wise man named Rubio that talked about it 2 or 3 years ago. We are going to end up in red or blue states because we can't seem to come together right now.
Judge, what's your thoughts on that since he called you out a little bit?
Well, this whole red or blue state, I think, is vastly overrated. There's obviously red and blue people in each state. I think the media, the social media, all of the algorithms that make you listen only to what you want to see are what are responsible for saying that there's this great vast divide, which I don't think there is this great vast divide. I think it's that people are listening to their social media, they're listening to those algorithms, they're listening only to the thoughts that they believe in. And I think like the Supreme Court has encouraged that. We're back to this whole quote states' rights issues. Let the states decide abortion. That was the whole argument in the Civil War. You should have the states' rights so they can have slavery. It wasn't about states' rights at all. It's about ideologies. And I think that we're playing into that way more than we should be. And if people would just get off social media, get off these algorithms that give them only what they want to hear, there would be a lot more general discourse and a lot less, quote, red and blue, and just back to the United States again.
Joe, you're living in a big city right now. Is that something that you believe is possible, or do you still like? Because Judge is bringing up some laws, and the simple fact of the matter is that yes, there's certain states that have certain laws. I mean, you could just look at the gun laws of Idaho versus Washington. They're border states. What's your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I think the way I've thought about it in the past is that we're almost in a cold civil war in certain aspects of life. We have, like the judge hit on, which is it's never been easier to find people that can make you scared or make you angry. And that is the easiest way to spread a message, is to create an other and then demagogue them and make people afraid and make people worried about their neighbors, to the point where you have these like Fox News addled minds that are shooting people trick-or-treating at their house and ringing the doorbell. I think that the real reality is, if I were to go out into Philadelphia and rant and scream about the rise of fascism in America, the muting of politicians across the country, the lack of justice for January 6th, people just say, what the fuck are you talking about? The bus is late. Like, I'm living my life here. Like, there isn't any divisive issue that's actually like motivating people in the real world to get angry at each other. It's just keyboard warriors yelling past each other, or people getting paid to yell at each other to stoke the tensions and ratings on cable news.
Go ahead, Jim. I'm going to go to Cruz, but Jim looks like he's got something, happening.
Well, I agree with Judge and Joe to a degree, but one of the things that captures my mind is I use a news aggregator. We talked about that. I'll watch CNN. I watch Bill Maher. I've watched Don Lemon, and And also I'm traditionally more conservative. And our last podcast, when I quoted something from Matt Walsh, I thought Joe was going to fall off of his chair. So, I indulge in all of it because I don't trust any of it completely. And I think that you're right in saying, the judge saying social media, people consume what feeds them and makes sense to them. And I think Joe's right in that sense. But if you're someone that chooses to look into other things, you still have to find some common sense and common ground. And that helps you come together and be able to have a conversation. And we're unable to do that right now.
Cruz, you're living in Southern California. You've been living there your whole life. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think going back to what Bill showed with that chart, it kind of just talks about how I think people have always been blue or red. I mean, I'm only 21, so I can only speak for the past 21 years, but I think there's always been blue people and there's been red people. And I think now people are just starting to get to the point where they're like, well, I'm red living in a blue state. It's not beneficial for me anymore. Like, I'll just leave and stop supporting. So I think that in terms of that, people are just now seeing that this is where they draw the line and this is where they're willing to be like, all right, now it's time to leave.
Bill Geiser, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, what the judge and Joe said about media, I agree with. I think mainstream media, whether it's Fox, whether it's CNN, MSNBC, they don't make money telling us the truth. They make money selling propaganda. They appeal to their base, and that's the way they drive advertising revenue. That's their business model. Same with social media. Social media is no different, and it's a horribly efficient way to amplify messages very quickly. It spreads virally like that. But I'll tell you who, in my opinion, really needs to be, their feet need to be held to the fire. It's the people who run this country, the politicians. Governing process in the United States as practiced today doesn't, in my opinion, encourage deliberation. That went out the door some time ago. Compromise, common good, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, I'm not pointing the finger at one right now. I'm casting this at all of them. They reward and they get paid handsomely by keeping us divided. Look at how rich these guys have gotten, keeping us divided, doing insider trading and all the other bullshit that they're able to do that the common man hasn't. So they need to level the rhetoric down a bit and actually lead from the front, not doing the stuff that they're doing that keeps us apart.
Sub 68, I know you want to go to commercial, but Jimmy Mac's been waiting patiently. Go ahead, Jimmy Mac.
No, we can go to commercial because I got a little rant to go.
Oh, okay. I guess Jimmy Mac's taking
Is
over.
it Florida?
He's sending us to commercial. Take us home.
Hello, my name's Ian Hill. And when I'm not training to be the oldest man to play NCAA Division I college football, I'm the CEO of NGBN TV. Our mission's pretty simple. Educate, equip, entertain, support, and inspire men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. It's a one-stop shop for all that a man in his middle ages needs to be his best. So once you come and join us, come and be a part of NGBN TV. Now back to our show.
Welcome back to your new favorite show on Decades. This is Decades on the NGBN.TV network. Make sure you guys continue to share publicly. Yes, send us messages that say you enjoy the show and, oh, God, you love the judge or you hate the judge. I get about 50-50 on all of you guys. But Jimmy Mac, back to you. We're talking about, is the USA already in a civil war? You want to go on a little rant here, Daddy? Let's hear it.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the individual in itself. A lot of people are too lazy to go out there and do the research and go about the way that they should go as being Americans who have ability to be free thinkers. I think a lot of people fall into red and blue because they're lazy. They want people to tell them what they should be mad at and what they should accept and all these things because they want to have, like I said, they want to identify with something. I want to be down, as we would say where I grew up at. You just want to be down with something. A lot of people that I know that are Democrats don't even agree with Democratic policies, but because they're against whatever somebody that's red or Republican is doing, they go for it. So I think it's a lot of bit on the individuals. I mean, the French, and I know it's the French, they got mad enough and got rid of their money years ago. Chopped off her head, off with her head, Marie Antoinette. That's how we got to start getting, because there's so like just getting on this show, I got to know how much I have in common with people I've never even been in the same room with, except for you, Rubio, and being in the room with you is one of the most fabulous things I've ever done in my life. But
not a dollar every time I've heard that.
but but I mean, it's just that people feel that they have to identify with something. They're not doing their research. They're not going out there and trying to figure out what it is that's best for everybody because they want to identify and be down with something. That's why we vote Democrat, Republican. Nobody's out there really free thinking. They're telling us what we should be mad at. This is what we should support, and then we're going out there and we're supporting it. We got to stop doing that. Go out there and take some time out to study. Not worried about what's going on social media, doing that. Take some time to study to figure out what are your real issues. Because some people would even change their parties if they understood what the real issues were. And like Bill just said, we got to hold our politicians' feet to the fire because they're never giving us the real truth. And we're making us hate each other just so we can be on somebody's side and identify with something that we probably don't even really identify with. Like Chris Rock once said, I'm liberal on I'm conservative on abortion, but I'm liberal on prostitution. Yes, because people are like that. People are like that. We'll take a side because we hate something more.
Okay, so with my other job, I do a lot of traveling, and usually I travel to more of the big cities. So lately, the cities have become almost just not good. Okay, I used to go to Seattle probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 or 9 times a year, and now the last time I was there, I went by the Cheesecake Factory, and there was just this hobo village of like tents and cars and all that. So my question is now, are the big cities, and Joe, we'll start with you. I know I got you going, Joe. We're going to start with you. Are the big cities becoming just unlivable, unbearable to where you don't even want to go there? So I'm saying because
obviously,
around where I live,
I mean, that's why they all have the fastest growing real estate prices in the country. No one ever wants to live in a dense, walkable place with a lot of public transportation. But the truth is, like what you're describing with those people who are unhoused in a major metropolitan city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, where there's dozens of parcels that are empty and most of the city can only be zoned for single family. There's just not enough room for all the people that want to live there. Like, if you want to talk about like the most hot war that's going on right now, we're in a class war between the billionaires at the top and the people like all of us who are working for their lives. I mean, you look at what happened in the during COVID. Billionaires saw their wealth go up $3.7 trillion, and people saw themselves lose $3.2 trillion in wages. I mean, it's not a coincidence. You have people like buying Supreme Court justices just because they can, you know? You have individual dark money that's going out and feeding those messages that Jimmy Mack's talking about out into the body politic to create these muddied waters, to confuse the issues and to prevent progress. You know, I don't think it's conservative versus Democrat or liberal versus Republican. I think it's the people that don't want things to change because it's been good enough for them and they can't imagine it being any other way. And the people that have to deal with the consequences of the selfishness at the top. And it's getting more and more targeted every day.
Or is it that they don't want the change because they see what the change is coming? For instance, I have a friend who he's a manager of these they build these high rises in downtown LA for like the young preps to come live in, you know, the young single parents, all things like that. And his biggest trouble is he can't clear the sidewalks and the first layer of the street for the parking. So you're selling these condos for $500,000 to $800,000. Jimmy Mack, you probably know where I'm talking about, kind of down there. And he can't get people to come look at it because they're gorgeous complexes, but there's, you know, a shanty town for 4 blocks right in front of it. So that becomes the problem of, okay, Joe, they're building these things for you, but what are you going to do about? You're not going to get anyone to move to the city if you have a hobo village living right in the front. Jim?
Am I commenting on the hobo village?
You can comment on anything you want, Daddy. You looked ready.
Joe hit on it, and I forget who else did, so I'm sorry. But if you're talking about this divergence, if you will, the one poll that stands pretty true is that there's about 20% faith in our legislative branch. It's sad and it's scary, and these things are causing division. I think you and I were tweeting the press secretary said immigration is down 90%. The comment about gun deaths being the highest. I mean, we can't get facts from anybody. Joe, I can't wait to drag him out here, spend a week out here driving around, shooting a gun, doing something, and seeing what it looks like to have to drive, to live somewhere where you can leave your door unlocked and your neighbors are great. You mow your buddy's yard if he's gone. I mean, we need to keep having these conversations to keep the divide going, because there's empathy, right? We have to have empathy for those who are struggling, but there's a reason that it went from, there's always been panhandlers, there's always been some homeless, to the point these cities are unlivable. I have a ton of family on the west side in Seattle. Most of them live Maple Valley, Rant, or north. They're like, I won't fucking go downtown. It's fucking disgusting. And that was a family tradition. We'd meet up, go to Pikes Market. Like you said, you'd go over there a lot. Something's wrong when this is happening, and it's not a good thing. And I call it is our governing. Our governing is what is failing all of us, because we elect these people to look out for our needs, whether you're right, whether you're left. They're not really addressing anybody's needs at this point.
Judge, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I was just in Seattle a couple of weeks ago, and Pikes Market was great. I didn't see a lot of homelessness. Perushki's reopened down on Pikes Market, so I could get my salmon perushki.
But Judge, why did they close down originally?
They originally did because of the homeless people in front of them, but they've apparently solved that problem, at least around Pikes Market. I think Seattle's not only Seattle, but cities get a bad rep because they're obviously the focal points of these problems, because that's where the population is. And I agree with Jim and other people that it's a problem, but it's a problem because of the divide in economics. You've got 1% of the people controlling a vast majority of the wealth in America, and 99% of the people trying to get by. That's what's ripe for revolution. That's what's ripe for democracies to fail. You've got to have.
I got you, Bill.
Got to have more level playing field for everybody. It gets worse and worse and worse for the 1%, and that's what's going to cause the problem.
A level playing field is that everyone is just born and has the opportunity to go to school and work. Or I'm a little confused. How much more equal opportunity do you want? What more does Jimmy Mack have other than me, besides he ran the 4-4?
It's just like Joe is talking about during the pandemic. Look who lost. Look who gained.
Look who closed it all down.
Everybody else lost.
Okay.
That's not going to be sustainable. If you have the 1% control 90% of the wealth, you're not going to have a democracy for long.
That brings us to a whole nother topic that at some point we will talk about the Rona, where you left open big corporations like Walmart, but then you closed, John's shoe store. Okay, Bill, go ahead.
Well, there's good news and bad news. The good news is we all agree the government is falling short of the job they should be doing. That's on both sides. In fact, the Pew organization ran a study, and I think only 8% of Americans see the government as being responsive to their needs. So 92% of us are saying, what the hell's going on? But as far as big cities are concerned, the bad news is it's going to get much, much worse before it gets better. We have yet to see the commercial real estate shoe drop, and it's getting ready to drop very, very quickly. There's a situation that's received some publicity over the last week. A empty building in San Francisco that 4 years ago sold for $300 million is testing the market right now. It's for sale. They'll be lucky to get $60 million for it, which is way below the loan on this thing. So wait until the banks start really crumbling. We got a massive issue facing us, and I'm not feeling good about what's going to happen in the big cities over the next 3 to 4 years. I think it's going to get much worse. I hate seeing it happen, but that's where we're headed.
Cruz, you being the youngest, but you're a poli-sci major, so this is going to hit a little bit different. Does your generation, you're speaking for the 20s now, do you guys even look at the government as a real thing, or is it more of just this clown show that we had with El Trumpo? Now you got Joey B, and then you got AOC. What's your generation doing?
Yeah, I compare it a lot to like a reality show where people just kind of have fun with it, poke fun at it. I mean, I would say it's taken fairly seriously amongst a good amount of people my age. But I would say that it's become sort of, people have made it somewhat artsy and tried to make it like fun and like, oh yeah, the Joe Biden's so great, Donald Trump's so great, like so grand. It's like you see a big, almost like fandoms created towards these two, towards politicians. And I can do it towards Matt Gaetz and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez too. There's like these sort of fandoms that are built around them where we kind of put them, at least people on my age, put them on a pedestal and say, oh, we praise AOC, oh, we praise Donald Trump. You know, it's like, no, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, they're like, let's stop acting like all of these people are great people and they care about us, because they don't. Like, these people don't care about us. I mean, it's clear when you look. I mean, I drove through San Francisco and Oakland last weekend. Never doing that again. Hard pass. Drive through LA every weekend to go, or on some weekends to go home. Yeah, I'm skipping the 101 and the 405, and I'll take the long route. It's impossible to live in these cities. I mean, I've been around them for quite some time. Hate LA, hate San Francisco. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to come back. Yeah, go ahead, Joe. Let's keep this going here.
Yeah, listen, the demise of the big city has been greatly overstated. Sunday, I did the Broad Street run right here in Philadelphia. It's the biggest 10K or 10-mile race in the country.
What time of the day?
It was 8 a.m. And it started up in Olney, not a necessarily good part of the city. But 36,000 people ran the race. And you know what you saw the entire way? Everyone coming out onto their porch and cheering you on. The band at Temple playing, people cheering all the way around City Hall. Because the truth is, the cities are great. They're a great place to live, especially if you're the type of person that wants to live in them. Ironically, you have the most privacy in the cities compared to any other living situation, because everyone gives you your own personal space. There's no one in top of yourself.
What city in the nation was number 2 in homicides last year?
Listen, Bill, you can be right, but you don't live in a city. I do. It's great. People love it. We all want to live in the city.
A close second to Chicago.
But Joe, you ran this race. There's 40,000 of your closest friends. Okay, so obviously they're going to have a lot of patrol out there. It's 8 a.m. on a Sunday. You know, people are eating their donuts. Would you go run that same route on a Saturday night at say 10 p.m.?
Absolutely.
By yourself?
Yeah.
By yourself?
Yeah. Like the biggest thing is you don't
without Jim on your side with his guns. Fine. Go ahead, Cruz. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I stopped in San Francisco last weekend at a 7-Eleven for about a minute and 30 seconds. Guy pulled in right after me. His car was robbed. In the same amount of time my car was there, but I got out quick enough. Previous week, I was in LA at a gas station, saw a guy dead on the sidewalk, covered in shit. So, like, let's not back to like the cities are great. They're not great. Like, I mean, Joe's only speaking for Philadelphia. And Jimmy Mack can speak for LA somewhat, but like, it's like the cities aren't great right now. They're not doing good. I mean, at least from what I've seen, they're not great.
Well, I think Moscow, Idaho has probably a higher percentage of murders per capita than any city in the last year.
Oh, Idaho's a state, but yeah,
Moscow, Idaho.
Yeah, one event.
So but take a statistic and use it to your advantage.
He wasn't from Idaho either.
The cities aren't as bad. I'm with Joe. Cities aren't as bad. I mean, I've been living in the city for 46 years, man, and I don't really run into that much trouble. I tell people all the time, especially my students, if you look for trouble, you're going to find trouble. A lot of times people look for trouble and they're going to find trouble. It's a densely populated area. It's not every area of LA is just this bad place. Where across the street from Crenshaw High School, where I work at, is some of the richest property in the United States. Right across the street. They don't have high crime rates, but if you just cross over Crenshaw Boulevard and go just east, you're gonna find crime. So I mean, the cities, it's where you want to be at in the city, is where you're gonna find crime. Like I say, I mean, Beverly Hills isn't that far from the ghetto, but you're not gonna find a lot of crime in Beverly Hills. You're not gonna find a lot of crime in Westwood. So I mean, but they're right around the corner. If you look for trouble, you're gonna find trouble. But that's anywhere. That's anywhere in this world, anywhere in the United States. You want trouble, you're going to find trouble. And these people want trouble, and they'll find trouble. So, I mean, yeah, you can go with the murder rates and stuff like that. But you got 13 million people in LA. Yes, you're going to have crime. You're going to have a high crime rate. You're going to have that type of stuff. Then where we have more people in the city of LA than they have in both Dakotas. and Montana combined. So yes, you're going to find a lot of crime rate in a very small place. So the cities aren't that bad. I mean, I live a great life in the city. I've never been to jail. I've never gotten in any trouble. And I know a lot of people have that similar story. But if you look for it, you're going to find everything you want in the city.
If they're so great, how come they're losing people?
Because it's expensive. It's expensive. Like I said, my sister moved all the way out 50 miles away from us because she can buy
Wait
a house.
minute. If they're not building, it should be staying the same, then, right?
They're building far away from the city. If you want to live out away from the city, they're building. There's a lot of empty houses and empty lots that they're building away from the city. But then I got to drive 50 miles to work every day. That's where the problem comes, is the inconvenience of crime. It's not just crime. People have been living with crime all their lives. They know how to navigate.
I didn't say it was just crime. I said it was a combination of crime and oppressive taxes.
And the time. Affording to live and time is some of the biggest things. Can I afford to live a good life here? And how much time does it take for me to live that good life? I tell people all the time, the most valuable thing you have in your life is time. I can have all the money in the world, but if I don't have the time, I'm not going to enjoy it. Time. That's what's the big problem with cities. A lot of time is being wasted getting from point A to point B. That's what makes it unlivable. Not that I can't, because I might get robbed outside of my house. Nobody's going to rob me outside of my house. I walk outside my house, nobody's going to rob me. But if I go into another area where I know that I can get robbed and I got stuff for people to take, they're going to take it because they don't have nothing. They don't have jobs. They don't have this sense of wanting to be bigger than what it is, because they identify with being in the hood, wanting to do hood things. That's why I say there's a revolution in identity. People are choosing paths that they don't necessarily have to choose because they want to identify as something that they probably shouldn't even be. Or
I agree with all that. I'm just saying the facts strongly suggest people are leaving those cities.
Okay, let's take our final commercial break, and then we're going to come back with just a 30-second recap from every single person to wrap up this episode. Go ahead, Big.
What are you doing? Everything's fine. Don't adjust your TV. Don't adjust your phone. Don't adjust your iPad. This is still Rubio. I just want to let you know about my other show called The Rubio Method on the NGBN.TV network. It's a show about men's mental health. We're all going through it together, and it's just one of those shows where it's a funny, lighthearted show where I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm having a good time while I'm doing it. You will have a good time. We've had over 30 episodes, and you can find us at therubiomethod.com.
My God, that was a fantastic commercial.
Unbelievable.
Ed, I don't even know where you found that. That was one handsome bastard right there. Good God. That was amazing. Good job, Ed.
It just ended up in my inbox somehow.
Yeah,
I don't know where it came from.
Lob it up. All right. So, is the U.S. already in a civil war? I think what Bill was trying to say is, if there's people leaving and there's no one coming in, what's the rub here? And if that's happening, which it clearly is. I mean, you could look at stat after stat, U-Haul stat. There's a billion of them. Why are the prices not going down? I think that's a question that we need to understand. If there's people leaving, there's openings. Okay, and Joe says there's a lot more privacy, which I Joe, you're gonna have to explain that one to me. I don't understand you have more privacy when there's that many more people. But Cruz, we'll start with you. What's your final thought on this? Is the USA already in a civil war monetarily? Let's say.
No, I don't think we're in a civil war by any means. I think that if there was going to be a civil war, as of recently, it would have already happened in 2020. I just think that there's like a divide amongst people, and to kind of go off what Joe said earlier, it's the 1% versus the 99 right now, and they're trying to divide us to the best of their ability.
Okay, Joe, go ahead. He talked about you.
Yeah, I think the reason I say you get the most privacy, Rubio. You're in a rural community. You got to rely on everyone around you. Your life and livelihood depends on it. You have to be in each other's business. When they say the streets get plowed, they don't say the streets got plowed by the DOT. They got plowed by Jerry. If you're in the suburbs, it's a small group. It gets very cliquey. Everyone ends up very much in each other's business. Your parent-teacher conferences. The beauty of a city is you get people that are on top of each other and don't want to know anything about each other. You purposefully ignore each other to give each other a sense of privacy and space and confined environment. I think, a lot of what I truly believe is wrong with this country is things like mandatory single family housing that creates less supply than there is demand. I have 6 different multifamily properties, and I have seen the rents go up. Pre-COVID, they were $1,200, $1,300. Same units are getting $1,850 now. The truth is there's more demand to live in these places because you can live anywhere now with work from home for the white collar class. The problem is if you live in a place where you're 15 minutes from work, you're 15 minutes from coffee, you're 15 minutes from school, but the people working there have an hour and a half commute, you don't live in a society or a community, you live in an amusement park.
Jim, since you look like you have gas throughout that entire monologue, go ahead.
First of all, I'm trying to smile for Deb, but second of all, I think I probably have misperceptions about the city, although having family there, I spend a lot of time. I think Joe might be a little off. I think the war is on ignorance. I mean, we have New York is charging higher traffic ticket fines for those with more money. That kind of stuff is what's driving people out of the city. Second of all, you can't continue to create this divide by, oh, you owe me because you make more. That is a path that is pushing people out of these cities. Yes, Joe thinks that it's everybody in the country's in each other's business. We have privacy. We help each other. We're there. The judge knows that. Chris knows that. I have 3 very close friends that played sports up here, one that didn't, but came up here. They have no desire to ever go back to LA again, ever. And the last quick comment is what Bill had said and I had said, there's no confidence in the government. You know who's going to bring Hunter Biden down? A family court judge in Alabama, right? Because she doesn't give a shit about politics. She cares that idiot wanted to quit paying less child support, and she wants to know everything about his finances. Whereas the entire FBI, federal government, the DOJ can't seem to bring charges. This lady is going to take him down. And that's because we've lost faith in our government and our elected officials.
Now the judge has a gas looking face. So go ahead, Judge.
Getting away from Jim's conspiracy theories. I would agree with Joe on the whole privacy thing. We've got Rubio, who's like Gladys. He's always looking out his drapes to see what the hell's going on in the neighborhood. So we have no privacy here. But going back to the problem, I think that the problem is that right now people are electing, we all agree that politicians suck, and people are electing personalities. They're not electing policies or platforms, and it's all based on personalities, and that is not something that's sustainable. That's all I got.
Jimmy Mack, not too bad, Judge. Jimmy Mack, try to keep it under 8 minutes.
I'll try. Just to answer Bill, the reason why people are moving out of cities because it's too expensive, because we want certain clientele in the city. We can have the upper class living in the cities and have everybody else live outside the cities, then that's when you'll have your Emerald City. But that's part of the problem right there. We want certain people to live in certain cities for the glamour and glitz of it all. But as far as a revolution that's going to be catastrophic, I don't think so. I think people are in their bunkers, and we're hunkering down on this is who I am, this is who I am, and that will be the end of it. But it won't go any further than that.
Bill Geiser, we'll finish with you, and then I will close it up.
So I heard a really interesting story today about a good friend of mine. No name's going to be mentioned, but they went to buy this like cannabis pen or something. You know, it's like looks like a pen, and apparently, you know, you don't smoke pot. It's a vape thing or whatever. Anyway, it cost them $100. It cost them $100 in Chicago, and they thought it was outlandish. So they drove to Michigan, which apparently has legal recreational pot too, and bought the same thing for $20. The difference is the 5-time increase is due to Illinois taxes. Now, I'll stand by what I said before. Record numbers of wealthy people are leaving states like Illinois, who've got this god-awful plan to tax the shit out of people. And what they're taking with them are record numbers of taxable income with them and giving it to other states. they better wake up quickly because their cities are going to be total shitholes before they know what hit them.
He spent
All great
$100 to
points.
go buy.
All great points. All great points. I'll just say this. I lived in LA, obviously went to school with Jimmy Mack at UCLA for, let's say 31 years. Then I moved up to basically rural Idaho. Judge wouldn't say it's too rural, but to me, first 6 months, I was like, Jesus, this is really rural. So I've seen both sides. And my opinion, are we in an economic civil war? Ever since about the last 3 years, right around the Rona, it was 100% yes. As I traveled around, you could see the differences just in the behavior of people from state to state, city to city. And the whole thing during the Rona, like if you were going to go on vacation, and even the politicians like AOC were famous for this. Lockdown in New York, not lockdown in New York. And where does she go to vacation? She goes to Miami. It's like, come on, guys. This is so obvious what's happening here. And I'm going to show you a perfect example. This is where it really, really hit home. Ed, can you pull up that picture and hold it up for me in my first one? Okay, it's going to show you a map of where I live. I live in Lewiston, Idaho. It's right where that blue dot is. So if you're looking at it, on the right side is obviously Idaho, and then to the left is Washington. The problem with that is that I'm a border state, so it takes me maybe 5 minutes to drive to the state of Washington. Now, the issue was during the Rona, they had to follow all of Seattle's rules. And then Idaho it was like the Wild West. There was no rules. There was no masking. A couple of people did, but there was nothing going on. And the fact of the matter, it got so asinine. This is where I really started to lean into the Civil War thing is the city right over from us, Clarkston, Washington. You have Clarkston, Washington, Lewiston, Idaho. Clarkston had to follow Seattle's rules, which was 5 hours west. Okay. So those kids, God love them, they were out of school for basically 2 years, where Lewiston was out of school for 2 months. And then so many of those kids transferred over. And then even the restaurant laws were Clarkston had to open up these outdoor eateries, which Clarkston, Washington gets pretty darn cold. So it becomes a big, big issue. So they're building these like tents and things like that. And they were losing businesses left and right because people were like, I'm not going to go to there and try to mask up and do this when I can just go to Washington. And the final straw that broke the camel's back was when Clarkston, Washington had to play Pullman, Washington high school basketball. But the Rona was very strong in Washington. Right as soon as you cross Snake River, man, that Rona was strong. So they couldn't play basketball. So what they did was they rented Lewiston's gym, and Pullman and Clarkston came 2 miles over and played in our gym. That's when I started to think, okay, this is literally a civil war, but it's done not just with guns. Sorry, Jim. It's done with other things like time, travel, as Jim Mack was saying, and definitely money.
Travel? That's a thing now.
Time travel? Yeah, we're going to get there. Guys, this was a fantastic, fantastic episode. I want everyone to hoist their drink. We agree to disagree on many, many things. And Ed, I got you. Ed.
Hold on.
Okay. Ed, who won?
You know, it's going to be, because I missed him last week, it's going to be my man, Cruz Rubio. Should have gotten the nod last week for giving the brother some love.
I thought it was going to be Jake Mack for the third time.
No, I can't. No, I missed out. I'm making up for missing Cruz last week. I shortchanged him. No pun intended.
All right, guys.
No,
make sure
great
everyone
show,
that's
guys.
watching. Everyone that's watching, please do us a favor and share the episodes. Give it up for all these guys. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Hey, guys.